dwarves. They're rallying. They're rallying to their king.
Hello and welcome to the table, Warhammer friends. Grab your favorite drink, kick back and relax, and join us and brace yourselves for a very long siege of Karak 8 Peaks as Belegar Ironhammer and the brave dwarves of Clan Angrun. Now, for those who are new to the channel, the gist of what I do with my content consists of narrative-driven Total War, Warhammer, Immortal Empires, and most recently, the Old World mod campaigns. I use a various amount of mods to really enhance the roleplay and gameplay of the different factions, whether they're vanilla or modded factions, to really show and tell unique stories of relations with other factions, and also of course taking you all on very epic battles. So for the new people here, if you're a fan of that, or also on the side I've been creating character builds for Baldurs Gate 3 and talking about the lore of D&D, I'd love to have you all join me for those adventures, friends. So I would love to have you consider hitting the like, subscribe, and bell icon notifications for those future adventures. Now with that out of the way, to recap some of the campaign, we did a major blitz as Belegar Ironhammer from Grim Peak all the way over to Karak 8 Peaks. And yes, in the Old World campaign, you do start off much closer to Karak 8 Peaks compared to Immortal Empires. Now the consequence of us blitzing our way from Grim Peak with Belegar and a secondary lord taking out Skarsnik at Karak Grill means that, yes, we now have control of Karak 8 Peaks in the early game, but at the same time, by focusing our attention on Skarsnik, wiping out the Night Moon mutinous Gits, and also Skarsnik's faction, we've kind of foregone and neglected the rise of the Skaven, mostly Clan Moors too, which is probably going to be a major thorn in our side, despite the fact that I believe we have what it takes to go toe-to-toe with Queek in melee combat. My plan over here is to use Lun and Belegar to assault Queek's main force here. The problem being that his Plague Claw catapults will be devastating to us if we don't take care of them as soon as possible. We mostly have a bunch of ranged troops and also a couple of melee troops for support, as well as Belegar and his heroes. In terms of our relations with other factions, Karak Azul is one of our friends in the region, but they are suffering very greatly. We have a military alliance with them, and we have the option to confederate them too, which I may consider depending on how the battle against Queek Headtaker goes. We also have friends of dwarves with Karak Norn and Barak Var. As for a lot of the other factions, we are very much hated by the Ogres, Skaven, and Greenskins, hence the reason why I have a gut feeling that a lot of them will be sending their various forces our way to contend for Karak 8 Peaks, and this is going to be a siege like none other. Some of the other factions we don't have to worry about too much. The Empire we've made deals with, and part of my campaign did consist of providing the settlements to our Dwarven allies. We've also even made deals with the Tomb Kings here too, if we scroll down to the Legion of Setep. We've sold a couple of regions to them just out of convenience and the fact that they would pay us for them. Using this one mod called Trade Any Settlement, it revamps the trade system of different settlements, so the fact that you don't have to be bordering on the same land as another faction, you can sell them to any tribe that you're not at war with for gold, and also for increased relations too. It was a risky move to sell Grim Peak, as Grim Peak was primarily our use of building up our military force. We did mostly doomstack ourselves with Quarrelers in order to attempt to outrange or also to pepper Queek's melee forces too. Queek does provide some bonuses to his melee forces, but the fact that we will try to damage him with our quarrelers, as well as take them out with as much of our melee troops and heroes as possible, I have a gut feeling that this will be a very good defense of Karak 8 Peaks, hopefully. So we will be moving Lun in position here to reinforce Belegar's forces. I was considering on using the underway to attack Queek, but also at the same time was afraid that we would be intercepted or would find ourselves in a poor position too. Hopefully this will send him off into the distance. Queek is in full retreat, and now we have a chance to fight against either Quelk or Halscurry. Halscurry is part of Clan Moors. Quelk is part of a different Skaven clan. Let's see, what does it say here? Clan Gritak, which we're also at war with. It's probably in our best interest to divide and conquer. I might be sending Lun back to Karak Loon here too.
No trophies today.
So I think it's in our best interest to take out Halscurry here, especially with the warp fire throwers too. The warp grinders will also be a major nuisance to us should they reach Karak 8 Peaks. Queek is my main target there though. And we're going to have to fight this battle manually because we have a whole bunch of other enemies at our doorstep too. Very Skaven-esque of them to be sent into full retreat. Right, this puts us in a bit of a predicament here. We'll actually send Lun and Belegar in march stance back to Karak 8 Peaks here. And we have to pray. We need to pray that our enemies don't actually find a way to attack us. Alright, we're gonna have to go into a march stance here. This is going to be very precarious for us on the end turn. Now, I do want to address the fact that I have a negative income. That's due to the fact that we were stacking, well, doom stacking as much quarrelers and also various melee units to be our meat shields. So that's going to be taking a lot of income from us. But also to offset that, I have been trading settlements to various factions, friendly factions, mostly Dwarven, a couple to the Tomb Kings and even to the Empire as well. Hence the reason why we have a massive treasury to pull from as well. Speaking of our treasury, I will be making a daring move to try to confederate Karak Azul. We'll be gaining some extra settlements from them. We'll be getting Grim Peaks back too. And let's just make sure that we don't have another army from them. They were also at war with the same enemies we were. Hence the reason why they were pretty weak as well and needed some extra allies to help them out in battle. It seems as though all they had left was Grim Peaks as well. So we're going to be selling Grim Peaks again. Let's see who is willing to provide gold for Grim Peak. I do want to ideally sell it for the maximum amount at 11,900. If we can't get any of that, even from some not so friendly factions, I will consider holding off on that for now. Yes, it is a little bit on the risky side to even consider selling it to potential enemy factions, but we are in desperate need of money at the moment. The Legion of Asgore is nearly willing to take it from us too, but seeing as they're Chaos Dwarves, that's going to be very questionable for us. Alright, doesn't look like we have any potential buyers here, so we will just demolish this building, and on the next turn, very much tempted to potentially sell it to Legion of Asgore. And who knows, maybe even take it back in a backstabbing maneuver too. But let's pray that we don't get attacked this round, and just pray to the ancestor gods that if we are attacked by one of these factions, that we are able to hold off as best as possible. Alright friends, this is probably like the best case scenario. This is essentially the opposite of a disaster battle. This is what I call a successful battle for us. We have Belegar actually ambushing the Skaven of all things too. This is probably one of the most hilarious situations, the Skaven being caught in an ambush themselves, Belegar's main force being the leading charge here, Lund reinforcing us, as well as the settlement garrison. This is also a decisive victory, which we can definitely auto-resolve, and I'm 90% okay with that, but at the same time, I do want to at least showcase the battle to all of you before we inevitably win. With that being said though, the Plague Claw catapults are still going to be a nuisance for us, so I am going to prioritize targeting those as soon as possible. We might even just utilize most of our settlement garrison. Doesn't matter if we lose our entire settlement garrison, it'll just replenish over time, but I do want to conserve most if not all of our other reinforcements too. So with that being said, we'll fight the battle. Very tempted to just do an auto resolve and get the victory that way, but at the same time, this channel we tell and show narrative Total War battles and campaigns, so I am going to give you all a battle worth watching. In a daring move, we're sending one force of dwarf warriors to devastate their backlines. Skaven making a major mistake too, just leaving their ranged forces in the backlines and having the majority of their frontline troops at the front with Queek. Little do they know that is actually playing really well into our plans as we send Belegar, Hackenhalf, and King Lund to 3v1 Queek. Not necessarily 3v1, as one of his chieftains and also some of his spearmen start storming in, storm vermin, trying to decide whether they want to attack our dwarf forces or to help their chieftain out. Quarrelers and also rangers raining fire on the main Skaven line. Massive explosion there, taking out a whole bunch of clan rats. Rain upon rain of arrows fire down. Queek trying to make use of the menace below, but also our warriors charging in to counteract them. Just as quickly as they arrive, they will quickly retreat off the battlefield too. Massive amounts of devastation to Queek's main army here too. Taking a little bit of damage, our ancestor heroes are, and also taking the brunt of the damage for Belegar himself too. Queek also taking massive amounts of damage after that 3v1 ambush. Belegar also unleashing all of his abilities on Queek all at once. Mighty swings of his hammer there, taking out multiple clan rats and also devastating Queek himself too. Completely ignoring his heroes at the moment, our main focus is to take out Headtaker himself. Dwarf warriors holding their line. Skaven slave slingers trying their best as well to pepper, harass us, and also to make some kind of dent on our front lines too. Hammer Fist and also some of our other heroes providing some support, throwing in some armor-piercing missile damage too. More clan rats from the menace below trying to disrupt our fire, but also our quarrelers with the support of our rangers and also dwarf warriors, making short work of them too. And with that, the Skaven have no choice but to completely blob up and die, either by running into the front line or also getting peppered by our ranged forces here too. A couple of them have made it past, reinforcements on their way too, and the dwarf warriors that we set in the backlines not just holding their own, taking out the plague claw catapults and also serving as a distraction for the Skaven slaves and a couple of clan rats to focus on them. Queek and his army in near full retreat and routing. Queek himself actually about to be killed right here. Belegar and two of his heroes absolutely holding the line and making devastating amounts of damage to the main army here. Queek himself going into full retreat. Skaven slaves still firing, but are they actually even making a dent on our front line too? Barely any damage done. Couple of dwarven quarrelers may have been lost in the ensuing menace below attacks, but nonetheless still raining and peppering the enemy Skaven forces with devastating fire too. Belegar charging in, his heroes using Foe Seeker to try to intercept Queek as well. Queek charging in for one last bout against Belegar. Belegar still at least half health, more than likely to win this 1v1 matchup, as Queek's clan rats try to swarm around Belegar in a vain attempt to protect their master. Queek himself actually hurting his own clan rats. Our heroes might actually make the final blow on Queek, but no, Belegar coming in at the very last second in a very Skaven-esque maneuver, hammering him in the back and thus winning the battle outright. Several other plague claw catapults and also Skaven slaves trying to make a run for it. Skaven slave slingers thinking they can be sneaky on us in the back lines too, but before they can even reach us, the rest of the army is in near full retreat after the death of Queek, and also their heroes even getting devastated themselves too, on the last legs of health for this one. This one not really even participating in the battle either. And with that, a victory is a victory. Multiple Skaven slaves getting devastated by quarreler fire there too. And all I see is a bunch of dead rats. Maybe a couple of dead dwarves too, but nonetheless, a well-fought victory and ambush for Clan Angron. So I totally know that was a cheese victory on my end. Very shameless as well. Losing a lot of our garrison, not taking too much losses on our end or even Lund's end either. But a victory is a victory, so we'll just casually take the Oath Gold and the regular gold as well, and we can say goodbye to Queek for the time being. Alright friends, despite an absolutely devastating Queek in that ambush, we're not entirely out of the clear yet. we still have 2 Skaven armies on our doorstep. Granted that they are pretty much neutered at this point without Queek himself. Basically just a whole bunch of numbers units. Alskari having a bunch of warp fire throwers, that is a little bit concerning, and also warp grinders, which would be concerning in a siege of Karak 8 Peaks. We also have a bloodthirster of all things here. It is pretty true in the lore too. From what I remember in one of the books, a Skaven Vermin Lord actually did summon a Bloodthirster, or actually a Skarbrand himself, in a battle between dwarves and Skaven. We also have this lone goblin a lord here, as well as a whole bunch of ogres on our doorstep too. My plan here might be similar to what I did with Queek, going into ambush stance with Belegar, maybe potentially even baiting with Lun too, and seeing who tries to get up in here as soon as possible. I might even make an attempt to ambush Spite, but essentially there's going to be a lot of turtling for the next few turns, my friends. And like I said, friends, this is going to be a very long siege in the defense of Karak 8 Peaks. Queek may even return too. We have to assume that Karak Nar and also some of the other ruin-dwelled cities here are belonging to Clan Moors themselves. Once we've broken the siege and taken care of our enemies here, I may make a push on Karak Yar, Karak Ziflin, or maybe even trying to take Karak Monhar too. Like I said, we can only assume that the Skaven control these ruins, and also, well, it's a guarantee too. Look at the amount of Skaven corruption here. Plus also, I'm genuinely praying to the ancestor gods that Queek doesn't come back anytime soon, and that we need to manage our turns as much as possible here too. If he does spawn in, we gotta pray that he spawns in by one of the nearby cities so then we can outright attack and destroy it. Anyways, this has been the beginning of the Siege of Karak 8 Peaks. Let me know if any of you in the comments would change any strategy or be more aggressive as well. Or if you would do the same as me, turtle up, try to do a holdout, defend, and ambush when you can. I'd love to hear any constructive criticism or ways that I can become a better overall commander too. And as always, for all the new people, and even returning viewers too, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for doing so and for taking the time to join us on this wild adventure here. A little bit of housekeeping aside too, I do plan on releasing more episodes on the Siege of Karak 8 Peaks, but I have also a bunch of character builds for Baldurs Gate 3 that I plan to release in between and interspersed as well. It's a mix of having similar if somewhat different audiences, but I believe these audiences of both D&D and Warhammer fans overlap very well with each other too. So until next time, take care, be safe out there, especially going up against anyone who may be sieging you, and I'll see you all on the next battle and the next adventure. Take care and farewell, friends.